Hey guys, and welcome to my first new moon forecast for 2022, which is going to be all about the new moon in Capricorn. So happy new year guys. I hope you had a wonderful celebration over the weekend. We enter 2022, I wouldn't say with a sort of a bang or a whimper, but we're certainly kind of going to be feeling reflective, and that's because Venus is retrograde, and halfway through January, Mercury is also going to turn retrograde until early February. So I think a lot of us are going to be feeling quite sort of, not necessarily nostalgic, but are going to be feeling maybe a bit more introspective than usual. And that this is probably no bad thing, because it's going to give us a chance to really ruminate over our kind of New Year's resolutions, what's important to us in terms of our values, and to kind of make adjustments where we feel that we want to kind of incorporate things from the previous year perhaps into our kind of New Year's resolutions going forward, and maybe also what we want to sort of let go of. Now, the new moon in Capricorn happens on the 2nd of January 2022, so it's an interesting date, you know, kind of 2122. So make of that, kind of what you will, but certainly it's interesting from a numerological point of view. 2 is the number of the moon, 1 is the number of the sun, so we're combining these two energies, which is exactly what's happening at a new moon. So it's a really interesting symbolic way, I think, of starting the new year, hopefully in a balanced way, where we can, because if you think about the new moon, it happens when the sun and the moon are making a conjunction to each other. So it's about uniting kind of head and heart, masculine and feminine energies within us in order to kind of move forward in a much more integrated way. But anyway, let's get more into the forecast and see what else we can look forward to with regards to 2-week themes. So in general, we are talking about the sign of Capricorn here, which is of course cardinal Earth. So this is very much about initiating energy. Cardinal signs are very much the kind of, the not necessarily the go-getters, but they are the initiators. They are the people that get things done. They are the leaders. They are the ones that are kind of pioneers. So they're not afraid to kind of take a leap of faith, or to take a risk, or to kind of go off in a new direction. And then you add Earth into that. This is very pragmatic energy. It takes action, and it wants to kind of manifest things in the material world. There's a need to see sort of significant change, quantifiable results, that kind of thing. And you combine it with the sign of Capricorn, and you can see why, as a sign, the mountain goat is all about success, why it's associated with being ambitious, determined and hardworking, because there's this consistent effort that's applied to things. It's Saturn ruled, so we are talking about someone that's not afraid to adult, that will take responsibility, that will shoulder responsibilities, that isn't scared to roll up their sleeves and do any hard work, and also is consistent. So because of the Earth energy, it's very consistent energy that's applied time and time again until mastery is achieved. It's also very future focused but realistic. So we're talking about a sign that works with givens, with knowns, and from within existing systems. That's why the sign of Capricorn is so associated with the kind of status quo. But nonetheless, it is a doer. It's somebody who has gravitas and integrity, and who follows through. So this is somebody who, as I say, is a real kind of mensch, if you like. Somebody who is like a stalwart in the community. They are very often prominent in their community because they're not afraid to take responsibility or leadership positions. So in general, what this means is that we're starting a 2-week cycle at the beginning of the year, which I think is quite fitting, actually. It's all about personal mastery and success, and this is the time of the year when we make New Year's resolutions and we want to put them into practice. So this is the perfect new moon to do that. So, as I say, this is about personal mastery and success, mastering the material realm. It's about having grit, determination, and the willingness to work hard, to improve, and to stick at things for the long haul until we kind of see results. And then it's also about we are talking about a moon here, a new moon. So we're talking about emotional resilience and endurance as well. So it's that spirit of kind of keep on keeping on, very much the sort of the English or the kind of the British thing of stiff upper lip, or just kind of keep going type of thing. So it's about being tough or resilient in the face of challenges, weathering difficult times or personal difficulties in a kind of, not necessarily a stoic way, but just in a determined way, that you kind of know that you're going to get through this, that this too shall pass, and that you've got what it takes to actually to kind of see your way through it. So it's about mustering up resourcefulness and self-reliance, about standing on your own 2 feet and being able to kind of make it on your own, either materially or emotionally. It's very much about kind of, as I say, adulting and not necessarily being tough, but if you think cardinal earth and you think that this is the sign associated with the father, then you can kind of see that this is more of that sort of it's less of that soft energy of the moon and of Cancer, of that maternal energy. It's more about kind of toughening up and being able to sort of face the world and kind of stick things out, if you like. Now, in terms of overall feel, I think really what we're looking at, given that Venus is retrograde, and as I say, Mercury will be retrograde from kind of mid-January, so probably around about the time of the full moon. It's about kind of matching up our values, ideals, and actions. So it's about integrity in many ways. So it's walking our talk, and there's a strong emphasis, in terms of where the planets are placed between the signs of Capricorn and Aquarius. And of course, these are quite different signs actually in many ways, but they also have kind of overlaps. If you think that Saturn originally ruled both of these signs, both Capricorn and Aquarius, there is an overlap in the sense that Aquarius can be about things like science, about trying to sort of do things to improve the lot for the collective, for the group, for humanity, and that Capricorn is the sign that's prepared to do that, that's prepared to shoulder those kind of collective responsibilities and kind of do the hard work. And in many ways, it's also, both of them are about systems. So it's about trying to sort of sync up our existing systems, or particularly on a kind of social collective level, with trends, reforms, and the need for change, or to sort of just try and match up our kind of lifestyles and our ideals, which are, I suppose you could say, they are kind of group values, so that we can live sustainably and and kind of in harmony and sort of in a kind of unified way, because of course Aquarius is all about the kind of brotherhood of man. Now, in terms of key planets, we do have a stellium in Capricorn at the time of this new moon. So we have the luminaries plus Venus and Pluto all in Capricorn, and of course Venus and Pluto are quite close to each other because they are coming off of that conjunction that we had on Christmas Day. Now, they in turn form positive aspects to Uranus, which is of course the ruler of the sign Aquarius. So you can see that there's a strong link here between Capricorn and Aquarius in the reading. I mean in the in the kind of energies. So this is all about kind of making positive psychological shifts, financial changes, opting for healthier choices, and in some cases responding to unexpected developments or plot twists that could affect our lifestyles, values, and relationships. And that's because Uranus is that planet of plot twists and surprises. There is always the element of kind of the unpredictable with Uranus, but we do need to remember that these are positive aspects. The sun will trine Uranus just before this new moon, and then of course at the new moon, the moon itself will then kind of perfect that, and that will set off a 2-week cycle of where we can really make positive changes, personal changes with, as I say, in the external world, with the sun, or internally with the moon, that take us off in a much healthier, more grounded direction, because of course Uranus is in Taurus. So this is lovely, grounded, earthy energy, and it really means that we can see constructive changes happening quite quickly. So we will see results quite quickly as a result of our decisions at this new moon. Now, the sacred symbol for this one is quite interesting. It's the sacred fire. So it's all about the 13th degree of Capricorn, which is a fire worshipper, meditates on the ultimate realities of existence. And I think this has a lot to do with the Zoroastrian sacred fire, so the religion of Zoroastrianism, which we'll kind of get into in a minute. But essentially, we're talking about this connection that we all have to the creative powers of the universe and its source, because of course the element of fire is the lightest of the elements, and it's considered to be the most closely associated with spirit. So with our connection to spirit, with that kind of that everlasting flame within us of our soul, it's also, the flames kind of leap upwards towards the heavens. So there's a sense of our soul reaching sort of up, wanting to sort of return to where we came from, and of course there's the element of purification as well with the fire, that that it burns but it also purifies. So there may be something kind of in that, since we are starting off a new year, it may be that on some level we want to detox, or do something to purify our energies, maybe do a sort of an energy cleanse or a sort of a sound bath or something like that, or just somehow use the element of fire in our rituals or ceremonies at the new moon. If you do set intentions, that kind of thing, maybe you do like candle magic, that kind of thing, where you carve sort of your intentions into a candle and then you burn it, something like that. But some key words to consider are things like Kundalini energy, purification, and also the whole kind of feeling of being on fire, of feeling alive, feeling enthusiastic, existence itself, and as I say, this idea of incense and that kind of thing. And then on the negative side, it can be where we sort of burn ourselves out, or maybe where we are a little bit too intense, or not seeing the wood for the trees, that kind of thing. So a need for illumination, if you like, this internal illumination which fire can kind of bring. But if we consider Zoroastrianism a little bit more in detail, Zoroastrianism is interesting because it's considered to be one of the first like monotheistic religions in the world, and of course it had an enormous influence on things like astrology, as well as most of the salvation cults that then became religions, today's kind of religions, particularly Christianity. So it was ascribed to the prophet Zoroaster, who we think lived around about 600 BCE or so, and he was a prophet associated with the Rig Vedas. So this has a strong connection to Vedic India, but he received this wisdom around about the age of 30, so at the time of the Saturn return, which I think is super interesting given that Saturn rules Capricorn, and he sort of gave birth to this new religion, which was all about kind of salvation. So it's the first time that we hear about man possessing an immortal soul, and this idea of kind of an overarching creator god, Ahura Mazda, the Lord of Wisdom, who dwells in heaven, with his kind of angels and various other kind of sort of divine entities, if you like. And this idea of man possessing an immortal soul, which you can see, symbolized by the sacred fire. This was the first time that this doctrine of man possessing an immortal soul, which was bound in an earthly body, and would have to kind of try to sort of navigate the fact that he's a kind of a dual being, sort of made of fire and earth, if you like, and that at death his soul would be released to ascend back to its true home in the heavens. And as I say, this did lay the groundwork for a lot of mystery religions, including Mithraism, as well as salvation cults, which dominated the Hellenistic period and had a huge influence on astrology, as well as cults like Christianity, which obviously later became huge sort of worldwide religions in themselves. But the sacred fire, this image of the sacred fire, which was common actually to Indian, so Vedic traditions as well as Iranian traditions, because of course Persia is kind of ancient Iran, and the sacred fire is considered the central icon of the Zoroastrian faith. So, but one thing that they do like to make clear is that they're not worshippers of fire. They don't. Which is what we get in the Sabian symbol. They are it's almost just a symbol like the Jewish Torah or the Christian cross, that type of thing. It's symbolic of their religion, and so for them it's more a sacred fire as a living, glowing image of the energy and presence of God. So that eternal kind of flame, that spirit which burns both within us and which we share with the essence. It's the essence from which we all kind of come from. This sacred and sort of pure kind of essence, which is kind of immortal. And it's interesting to think about the stars. They were considered to be sort of like immortal fires in many early kind of traditions. This idea of this fire that sort of burns eternally, and provides light as well. So we get very much this emphasis on dualism, so of light and dark. And also this idea of sacred fires as being like cooking, which you get a lot of in alchemical traditions, and of course in things like the I Ching. There's a lot about cooking in there, you know, the ding vessel and that kind of thing. So these fire temples that became associated with Zoroastrianism, they existed in both Iran and India, and in some cases the sacred flame was maintained at all times, and if the tribe moved, they would take, you know, the kind of summer embers with them, and they would reignite the flame in their new kind of sort of camp, or that kind of thing. But generally speaking, in Zoroastrianism, they place symbolic foods and flowers around the sacred fire. They also like recite prayers and things over the fire, and that these all have their own sort of symbolic meanings. And very often after a service, these foods, which may either be, you know, kind of put around the fire, are consumed by the community. So again, this interesting idea of eating and being eaten, which we see in Christian religions, you know, with the kind of the communion, that kind of thing, you know, eating the body of Christ and so on. So yeah, it's just something to sort of think about when you contemplate the Sabian symbol, because it might kind of evoke certain themes for you, something to sort of ruminate over, you know, during this period, which I think is going to be, as I say, a bit quieter than usual, with 2 planets retrograde, you know, from mid-month. So yeah, just worth something to think about. And then we come to the 5 degrees, or the demi-decan, in which this new moon falls, and this takes place in the lunar phase of accomplishment, according to James Burgess and his system. So we're talking about the degrees between 11 and 15 of Capricorn. So if you've got placements here, then this will be a little bit more amplified or kind of personal to you than say to the general collective. So this is all about the kind of the crux of the sign of Capricorn, which is a lot to do with accomplishment and with success in the material world. And, you know, here Burgess talks about how this desire to be successful is almost universal, and it's something that we, for example, see very strongly embedded into the kind of the American dream, where, you know, there's this idea of if you work hard and you keep at things and you have a kind of positive expectation of good outcomes, that you should sort of succeed in the end. You just have to kind of stick with things. And of course, as I said, Capricorn is very much about kind of sticking with things, but it's also about this interesting juxtaposition between the individual on one hand and society on the other, because of course Capricorn is a sign that's very much associated with being part of the herd. So there's a high degree of conformity. You know, Capricorns like to feel respected by their community. They also like to contribute to their community. It's important to them that they are successful or recognized for being successful in sort of the conventional sense, so in the material sense, or you know, in terms of like status, that kind of thing. And I suppose this has to do with almost the formulas for success. You know, is there a formula for success? And, you know, is it just about kind of following a prescribed universal pattern of kind of setting goals, mastering the skills needed to achieve them, working hard and sort of consistently overcoming challenges in order to sort of enjoy the fruits of our labor? Is it also about engendering cooperation from others? You know, this social contract that I think is very key to the sign of Capricorn, and that I think has this interesting link with Aquarius. Yes, I mean, you know, all of those things. But I think what's also so fascinating for me, and something that, you know, I discovered quite kind of late in life, is that, you know, although we are kind of brought up to believe that there is this kind of universal pattern or template for success, I don't believe that that's true, actually. My own experience has been that, you know, everyone's path is slightly different, and some people do just find it easier to kind of manifest materially than others. And I think the system that for me best expresses this or explains it is human design. And you know, particularly this idea of the manifestor versus the generator, for example. So this is all about people having different auric types and different skills. So some people are able to kind of manifest much more willfully and consciously, and other people have to wait for opportunities to come to them and then respond to them. And then still others have to be wait to be invited to connect with the right group of people in order to combine efforts or skills and sort of be successful, you know, kind of collectively, if you like, or in a partnership with others. Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, but, you know, Burgess has kind of given us these points to think about, this idea of self-actualization versus the herd instinct. What is true knowledge? Do we need to sort of work only in the material world, or do we have a kind of do we need to remember that we have this sacred fire within us, this kind of inviolable connection to a creative power in the universe, like our solar plexus and our sacral centers, which are kind of centers of life force energy. And also, like, how much of our creative life signatures and our purpose has to do with our collective relationship, in other words, our relationship to the whole, and how much of it has to do with our kind of individual soul mission or purpose. And also this idea of cooperation, of the social contract and of and giving and receiving of our time and resources. It's something that's not very popular in the sort of the age of the individual, where we tend to be very me-centered and not really think about anyone other than ourselves. But this was not the case for a long time, and in order to survive, there needed to be cooperation. So it's an interesting one to kind of ruminate over, and particularly, as I said, when we are at the beginning of the year and we are thinking so much about the goals ahead that we want to achieve for ourselves, perhaps career-wise or in terms of like outward success or material success or status. What does that mean, and what does it require from us? Just something to sort of ruminate over. All right, so in terms of the chart itself, there are a couple of things I want to sort of draw your attention to. So first of all, as I said, we've got the Sun and the Moon as part of that stellium with a retrograde Venus and Pluto. So we can see them here. And then just ahead of them are Mercury and Saturn, both in Aquarius. So that's why I say these two signs are strongly kind of highlighted at this new moon. And then on top of that, we've got them making a very positive aspect here to Uranus, which is also retrograde. At about 10 degrees or so of Taurus. And as I say, I do think that this bodes well in terms of wanting to make changes, to your life, to your lifestyle, or maybe to your outlook. We can see that the Sun and the Moon are both separating from trines to Uranus, and this will still be in play, and I think it will be energy that will be activated for the next 2 weeks or so. So I think a really great time to make changes and to be open to doing things in a new way. Uranus is all about the novel and about kind of not being afraid to look forward, to be future focused, to adopt new technologies or new ways of doing things, and also to be open to like new offers or new ways of doing things, or just maybe what's unusual, or maybe just kind of doing something just slightly different and seeing what kind of results you get, because you might surprise yourself in terms of you might be quite entrenched in one particular way of doing things, and then discover that trying something different really can make a difference, or will lessen your workload, or all of that kind of thing. So I think it's really about being open to the novel, to the new, and to innovative ways of doing things, or of doing or being, essentially. The luminaries will also be square to Chiron. You can see that down here, and of course Chiron is still in Aries in at around about sort of 8 degrees or so. And so it might be that as I say, going into the new year, we do feel a little bit vulnerable on some level, and so we just need to, I think, be kind to ourselves and allow ourselves to sort of slow down and not feel that we have to rush any kind of decisions or anything like that. As I say, we do have Venus sort of retrograde, and that can often affect our relationships to people and to money, and it can sometimes also just make us aware of what's important to us. So, and sometimes we have to sort of either communicate that to other people if we feel that they're not meeting our needs, or we perhaps need to make some changes or adjustments in our lives that will allow us to become more in alignment with what it is that we need. It could also be that there's some kind of healing like challenge that makes us aware of where we have a wound or where we feel a little bit vulnerable, that kind of thing. And of course that always gives us an opportunity to then do something about that. So even though it could feel, as I say, we could sort of go into this new moon feeling a little bit sensitive, there's always this opportunity, particularly if we consider that Chiron is coming off of a trine to Mars, which is of course the ruler of Aries, that we can always take action to make changes that are going to make us feel better. Now, what's also fascinating is that both Mercury and Mars are going to be making conjunctions to two of what they call the Hermetic lots. So in Hermetic astrology, there are kind of 7 lots, or kind of parts, Arabic parts that are associated with the 7 planets. And these were sort of considered to be main kind of pointers to certain like soul patterns or soul contracts that we might have kind of come in to work with. So themes around, kind of karmic themes, if you like. And so the lot of necessity or fate was most closely associated with the planet of Mercury. So it's interesting that Mercury is going to be conjunct the lot of necessity. And so this was a lot to do with our kind of lot in life, the karmic lessons or burdens that we sort of are here to learn. So where we may feel like we have limiting sort of beliefs, or perhaps where we have like a sort of a communication barriers, or just that where we think that we're sort of limited, and kind of how can I put it? Where we may feel that we don't have a lot of choice, where circumstances may kind of mean that we have limited options, or we just feel that we're inhibited in some way. So that's just one thing to sort of think about. And then Mars will be conjunct a lot of courage, which is also the Mars ruled lot. And this is all about kind of facing up to our fears, which I think is really what this Chiron square is all about. It's facing up to our fears. When we get triggered, very often, what triggers us is wounds that are sort of rooted in fear and in pain. And so I think with Mars being conjunct a lot of courage in the sign of Sagittarius, I think we're being asked to kind of like face up to our fears, and to have the courage where we can to sort of overcome any kind of barriers or limitations that we might have either self-imposed, or that maybe we may feel are imposed on us by circumstances. So to kind of make an effort to sort of overcome like the odds, if you like, the karmic odds. So those are just 2 things to sort of think about. And then of course Jupiter is newly ingressed into Pisces, so that's an interesting one. I think we're still adjusting to that energy. It does tend to amplify whatever whatever sign it's in. So I think it's amplifying all those Piscean qualities, which are very sensitive, compassionate, but are also sometimes a little bit too open. So having to possibly, think about boundaries, or also just realize that we might have to kind of take care of ourselves, because we might be like psychic sponges, in terms of absorbing the energies of people or kind of atmospheres, that kind of thing. And you can see that Jupiter is coming off of squares to the nodes. So it may be that some of the circumstances or the people that we encounter now are there to teach us important soul lessons. So yeah, just sort of, something else to kind of think about. But on a more kind of positive note, we do have Mars coming off of its sextile to Saturn. So there's still a lot of kind of get up and go energy there. We've got the sort of motivation and the self-discipline to make things happen, to sort of implement goals, that kind of thing. So that's quite nice. And then Venus is also approaching a sextile to Neptune, which of course rules Pisces, and that's a really romantic, poetic, creative kind of aspect, which is quite dreamy. So interesting energies around. I would urge you, if you haven't already, to think about purchasing your 6-month forecast, because I go into the aspects for every month in detail for each sign, as well as look at things like the overall energies of the solar eclipse for each sign individually. So check that out if you haven't already at the Astrology Sphere shop. But of course, in the short term, if you want to know where best to sort of put your energies when it comes to sort of pressing the reset button or setting New Year's resolutions, here's your cheat sheet. As usual, we are talking about a sun-moon conjunction, so just look for your rising sign in the chart, and this will give you an indication of the life area where you are, where you probably will benefit the most from putting your focus. So that's it from me, short and sweet. I hope you've enjoyed this. Just to tell you that if you're interested in signing up for one of my premium memberships, so either gold or platinum, you can get 22% off your first month's membership. Just use the coupon code MEMOFFER222, which you can put up in the top there. Visit the Astrology Sphere shop and just click on the subscribe button and put in the coupon code at checkout. Offer extends until the 31st of January, and that also will give you access to those 6-month forecasts. So if that is something that you're interested in, then check that out. But anyway, I hope you have a wonderful January and many good wishes for 2022, and yeah, see you again soon for my next forecast.